Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. No backstory today. No introductions. Just this. I made her coffee, placed it on her nightstand, and whispered, "It's ready." She didn't even flinch. That morning, the coffee didn't steam for long. She used to drink it the second I brought it in. Black, 2 sugars, 1 ice cube. She claimed it cooled it just right without ruining the flavor. It was our ritual. Something small but sacred. But now, the mug sat there untouched, hours later. Like me, it didn't matter anymore. I opened the window, let the city noise fill the silence. Anything was better than the tension in that room. A month ago, Kala would have asked why I was up early. Now, she barely acknowledged I was still in the apartment. And I didn't know what was worse, her silence or how I'd started timing it. 37 days. That's how long she'd been ignoring me, bit by bit, second by second. She hadn't said good morning in 37 days. Hadn't asked how I was doing. Hadn't touched me, not even by accident. The decline wasn't sudden. That would have been easier. This felt like being erased in slow motion. And no, we didn't fight. No slamming doors. No threats. Just withdrawal. Like she was silently removing herself from our shared life while pretending nothing was wrong. I started checking our fridge for signs she still lived here. She did. Her almond milk was still there. Her half-finished yoga smoothies. That stupid lavender shampoo I could smell from across the hallway. But emotionally, she was gone. Every night I lay beside her, awake, wondering if she was texting someone else. If maybe someone made her smile in ways I hadn't in years. I couldn't prove anything. I didn't want to. What would I do with the proof? Be angry? Leave? Cry? No. I'd just keep making her coffee. Like a fool. Hoping maybe this morning would be different. It never was. She stopped wearing the necklace I gave her on our 5th anniversary. Stopped leaving the bathroom door open while brushing her teeth. Stopped watching the dumb quiz shows we used to mock together. She didn't even laugh anymore. I once dropped a plate just to see if she'd react. She didn't look up. That morning, I sat on the couch with my bag beside me. She walked out of the bedroom in silence. No eye contact. No glance at the full coffee mug. She grabbed her purse and walked out. I waited for the door to click shut. Then I stood up and left too. But not to work. Not to clear my head. I left everything behind. The coffee. The apartment. The woman who stopped seeing me as someone worth speaking to. She ignored me for weeks. So that morning, I made sure she'd have no one left to ignore. The first thing I noticed when I left wasn't the freedom. It was the ache. Not in my chest, surprisingly. In my hands. They felt empty. I had spent so long carrying our relationship, its weight, its silence, its unanswered questions, that the moment I dropped it all, my fingers didn't know what to do. I didn't slam the door. I didn't leave a dramatic note. I just left. My bag in one hand, my dignity barely hanging on in the other. I didn't have a plan. I checked into an extended stay place across town. The kind with beige curtains and a broken vending machine. It smelled like Lysol and regret. But at least it didn't smell like her. I sat on the bed that first night with my phone on the pillow beside me. Waiting. Stupidly waiting. I imagined she'd text, "Where are you?" Or maybe, "Are you okay?" But nothing came. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even when I didn't show up at the house for 2 whole days. On the 3rd day, I turned off my phone. I needed space. From the noise, from her, from my own obsession with her silence. So I took a walk to clear my head. It started drizzling. Normally I'd rush back in. But that afternoon, I walked straight into the rain and let it soak me through. Somehow, it felt more honest than anything she'd given me in weeks. By the 5th day, something shifted. She used her key. The building has a log system. Swipe cards at the lobby door. I checked it from the app. She entered at 11:52 p.m. She didn't call. Didn't ask if I was there. Just came. Maybe she thought I was asleep. Maybe she thought I'd still be sitting at the kitchen table, waiting with that same dumb, hopeful expression. I wasn't. I was gone. But I had cameras. Yes, I know how that sounds. Creepy. But I didn't install them to spy on her. I installed them months ago when our building had a break-in. One of them caught the living room. That night, it caught her too. She walked in and stopped at the coffee table. I had left one thing behind, a mug. The same one I used every morning to bring her coffee. It was clean. Empty. On purpose. She stared at it for a long time. Then she did something I didn't expect. She picked it up, sat down, and held it to her chest. Like she was mourning it. Or me. Or both. She stayed for 27 minutes. Just sitting there. not moving. And then she cried. Not loud, not dramatic, but her shoulders shook in that quiet way only real pain can produce. Then she got up and left. Still no text, but something in me twisted. Because now I didn't know what hurt more, her silence back then, or the sound of her crying now that I was gone. And part of me wondered if I had walked away too late. 2 days after she visited the apartment, something kept gnawing at me. Not guilt exactly, because I'd lived in silence for far too long to feel guilty for walking away, but a strange, tight feeling in my chest that wouldn't let go. It wasn't about her tears either. It was the way she held that mug. Like it meant something. Like I meant something. And if there was even a 1% chance that her silence had a story behind it, I needed to know. So I went back. Not to stay, just to look. The apartment felt smaller than I remembered. Emptier, but still haunted by routine. The shoes she always left slightly crooked by the door. The wilted lavender she hung in the hallway because she read it welcomes peace. The wine bottle, half full, still open. Her coat was gone. So were a few pairs of shoes. But her scent lingered in the air, like defiance or memory. I couldn't tell which. I stood there for a while, staring at nothing, and then my eyes landed on the little side drawer under the hallway mirror. The one she never used. I only ever kept spare keys and old receipts in there. But that night, for some reason, I opened it. And there it was. A phone. Not her usual one. An old model. No case. No lock screen. It buzzed once in my hand as I picked it up. One unread message. He left. It's done. Please don't text again. It was from 2 months ago. I just stared at the screen, my thumb hovering above it. I shouldn't have looked through it. But I did. Message after message. All of them from the same number. Some romantic. Some desperate. Some angry. The timeline told a different story than I'd imagined. Apparently, there had been someone else. Briefly, she'd stopped replying a while ago. The last texts were all from him. Missed calls. Why are you shutting me out? You promised me. Say something. The final message came 3 days after she'd ghosted him. He'll never understand you like I do. There were no replies after that. I put the phone down and just stood there, arms crossed, staring at the drawer. My wife had cheated on me. But what hurt most wasn't the betrayal. It was that she chose to stay. Not for me. Not for us. But to hide. She buried the affair, buried her guilt, and then buried me in silence. Because she couldn't face what she'd done. I had become a living consequence. A breathing reminder of the person she didn't want to be. And suddenly, everything made sense. The quiet. The averted eyes. The way she flinched when I said, I love you. She wasn't punishing me. She was punishing herself. And dragging me through it. But knowing that didn't fix anything. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel justified. I just felt hollow. Because now I had the answers I thought I wanted. And they made me miss her even more. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing her voice in my head, even though I couldn't remember the last time she'd actually spoken to me. Isn't that strange? A person lives with you for years, shares your mornings, your dinners, your bed, and then one day, they stop speaking. And the silence becomes louder than anything they ever said. But now, I had something louder. That phone. That message. That name I didn't recognize. And a choice. I could text her. I could ask, who is he? I could demand answers. I could scream, finally scream after all this time. Or I could leave it. Let her sit with the silence she created. Let her wonder what I knew, what I didn't. Maybe that was worse. Maybe that was better. At 3:14 a.m., I drafted a message. I found the phone. I know. That's all I typed. Just 3 seconds of truth. Then I stared at it for 20 minutes. And deleted it. Because the moment I typed it, I felt pathetic again. Like I was begging for an explanation that wouldn't fix anything. What was I hoping she'd say? I'm sorry. That wouldn't rewind the clock. It wouldn't erase the way she used me as a wall to hide behind. I started pacing the cheap hotel room again, rubbing the back of my neck like it could somehow squeeze clarity into me. Part of me wanted her to hurt. Another part, an uglier, more pathetic part, wanted her to chase me, cry harder, beg me to come home. I hated that part of myself. I hated how much power she still had over me. Around 5 a.m., I made another decision. Not dramatic. Not bold. I just called the office. Took the rest of the week off. Packed a bigger bag. Booked a small place 2 towns over where no one knew me. Where I didn't have to keep checking my phone every 5 minutes. Where I could be Merrick, not Calla's husband. Not the guy who makes coffee no one drinks. But as I zipped up my bag, something hit me. A detail. A thread I couldn't ignore. She didn't delete the texts. She left the phone in a drawer I would obviously open if I ever came back. And she entered the apartment days after I left, when she knew I could still return. She knew about the cameras. I had shown her the app myself after the break-in. It wasn't an accident. She wanted me to find it. Why? Guilt? A confession she didn't have the courage to say out loud? Or was it something else? Was it a test? Was she trying to push me into a confrontation? Trying to punish herself further through me? I suddenly wasn't sure who had control anymore. Was I the one walking away? Or was I still orbiting her story, waiting for closure that would never come? That's when the real question hit me. If she had actually loved him, why didn't she leave? And if she didn't love him, why did she stop loving me? I didn't plan to return. That was the whole point of walking away, right? To be done. To disappear. I wanted to strip my life of her completely, like removing a wall covered in mold. Ugly, hidden, and ruining everything it touched. But the universe doesn't give clean breaks. It prefers messy ones. Ones that leave you pacing hotel rooms in socks and staring at ceiling fans like they'll offer wisdom. The call came at 10:07 a.m. I was halfway through a stale muffin, sitting cross-legged on the scratchy comforter of my motel bed. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. No city, no contact. I almost let it ring out. But something told me to answer. Hello, I said, my voice cracking like I hadn't spoken in days. Nothing. Just static. Then a breath. Merrick. My stomach dropped. Not because it was Kala. It wasn't. It was her sister. We hadn't spoken in over a year. She always found me dull, too careful, too passive. I didn't argue. I just stayed in the background at family gatherings, carrying plates and smiling on cue. I always assumed she barely knew I existed beyond the title, Kala's husband. You need to come back, she said, skipping greetings. I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't serious. I asked why. She hesitated. She collapsed at work. Panic attack or something. They called me because I was listed as emergency contact. She's at home now, but she's not okay. I don't know what happened between you two, but I figured you should know. I stayed quiet. My hand was gripping the edge of the mattress like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Collapsed? Kala? That didn't make sense. She was cold, calculated, always in control. Panic wasn't in her vocabulary. I thought you were on a trip or something, her sister added. But then I went to your place and saw your stuff was gone. Did you guys separate? I didn't answer. I hung up. I sat there for another 10 minutes, trying to decide whether I felt anything. Guilt? Justice? Nothing fit. What was I supposed to do? Rush back like a hero? Hold her hand and pretend the past 2 months hadn't happened? I grabbed my coat anyway. The drive was slow. Like the universe itself wasn't sure whether I should make it there. I parked 2 blocks away, staring at the window of our apartment from a distance. Curtains drawn. No sign of movement. I don't know what I expected when I walked in. Certainly not to find her curled up on the floor near the coffee table, clutching a pillow like it was a person. Her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking. She looked up when she heard me, and for a second, just a second, there was relief. Then shame. She didn't speak. Neither did I. I just looked around. Noticed the place was exactly how I left it. My half-empty bottle of cologne still on the sink. My favorite hoodie draped over the chair. The coffee mug, was in the sink, unwashed. Then she whispered something. I thought you hated me. I didn't know what to say to that. She stood up slowly, like every part of her was sore. Her voice cracked as she said, You weren't supposed to find the phone. I left it because I didn't know how to say it. What I did. What I almost did. I asked almost. She nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. I didn't go through with it, Merrick. I couldn't. I shut it down. But by the time I did, I didn't know how to face you. I thought you'd see it in my eyes. I thought if I stayed quiet, maybe you wouldn't look too closely. That's the thing about betrayal. Sometimes, it's not about what they did. It's about how much they tried to pretend they didn't. She kept saying the word, almost like it was supposed to soften the blow. As if nearly doing it, but not quite, should count for something. As if intention could be erased just because the action was aborted halfway through. But to me, almost felt worse. Because that meant she stood at the edge, looked over, and had time to choose. And still considered jumping. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. The silence between us had grown roots. She stood there, wringing her hands like a schoolgirl caught in a lie. Except this wasn't about grades or curfews. This was about the person I shared a home with. a life, a future I clearly believed in alone. When I finally spoke, my voice came out colder than I intended. Who was he? Her lips parted like she was going to answer, but nothing came out. Just air. I pressed again, firmer this time. I saw the messages, Kala. I read them. Who was he? She shook her head slowly, almost like she was trying to block the name from forming in her mind. Then she sat down on the floor again, pulling the pillow to her chest like it was armor. You don't know him, she said finally, eyes fixed on the floor. He works with a vendor. Not even someone from my team. We met at a networking dinner. He was charming, easy to talk to. It started with messages, jokes, then drinks after meetings. I thought I could handle it, that it was nothing. I scoffed. That's how it always starts, right? Nothing. Until it becomes the only thing. She flinched, and I hated that part of me still cared enough to feel sorry for that. I stopped it, she whispered. Before anything happened. Before it got physical. That doesn't mean it didn't exist. She nodded, slowly. I know. I punished myself for it every day after. That's why I stopped talking. I couldn't pretend everything was okay. And I couldn't admit it, either. So I froze. I believed her. I wish I didn't, but I did. The timeline matched. The silence, the distance, the way she'd look at me like I was a ghost. She hadn't just been pushing me away. She was burying her guilt, hoping I wouldn't dig it up. But why didn't you just tell me? I asked, genuinely trying to understand. Why let me think it was me? That I did something wrong? You had me questioning everything. Her eyes brimmed again. Because I thought if you didn't know, maybe you'd stay. That one hit hard. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest. Brutally honest. She'd rather suffer in silence than risk watching me walk out the door. But the irony? That's exactly what happened. And now we were two broken people, standing in the rubble of something they both tried to preserve in the worst way possible, through silence. She reached out then. Barely. Just enough that her fingers brushed mine. I didn't take her hand. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she said. I don't expect that. I just needed you to know the truth. Finally. I looked down at her. At the woman I used to adore. The woman who used to fill rooms with her laugh, who used to steal my fries and claim she didn't, who used to sleep with her head on my chest like it was the only pillow that worked. Now she was this, hollow version. Haunted, but human. And I didn't know if that made it better or worse. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe I wanted to prove to myself that she had lied, that the affair wasn't just almost. Maybe it was spite. The kind that builds in your chest like steam, burning and bubbling until it forces you to act. Whatever it was, it led me to him. I found his name in her phone log. She had deleted the messages, but the call records were still there. Just enough of a breadcrumb trail for someone like me who had nothing left to lose. He worked in logistics. Some vendor who handled tech shipments for her company. I recognized the name from one of the few times she actually spoke at dinner, months ago. She had laughed at something he said during a warehouse visit. Back then, I didn't think much of it. Now, that laugh played in my head like a siren. I waited until late Friday afternoon. He had a pattern, based on my digital stalking and a few LinkedIn clues. He left the facility at exactly 4:45, took the same exit, and always stopped for gas at a station off Willow Lane. I got there early, parked across the street, and waited. When his car pulled in, I felt sick. My palms were sweating. I wasn't sure what I expected to do. Yell? Confront him? Ask him why he thought it was okay to creep into my marriage like a termite? I watched him pump gas like a regular guy. He looked ordinary. Boring, even. Brown jacket, slightly balding, humming to some pop song I couldn't hear. This was the man who had fractured everything? When he went inside to pay, I made a decision I didn't plan on making. I followed him. He walked out with a soda and a scratch-off ticket. Got in his car. I stayed 3 cars behind as he drove toward some apartment complex a few blocks away. Nothing fancy. Just another line of units with mismatched window blinds and neglected gardens. I waited until he parked and disappeared into one of the buildings. Then I got out of my car. It wasn't bravery. It wasn't justice. It was the kind of numb determination you get when you've cried everything out and there's nothing left but bones and spite. I found his door. Unit 2B. I stood there, my hand raised to knock. My heart pounding, so hard it sounded like thunder in my ears. And then the door opened. He was standing there, holding a grocery bag, clearly startled. Can I help you? He asked. I said his name. Flat. Quiet. He squinted. Do I know you? I gave a dry smile. You know my wife. His face changed. Instantly. Like a mask being ripped off. The confidence vanished. The relaxed shoulders tensed. His mouth opened, but no words came out. I'm not here to fight you, I said. I just needed to see the man who thought texting another man's wife every night was okay. He swallowed hard. She told me it was over. Months ago. Was it ever really something to end? He looked away. You don't want to know the answer to that. That was the moment. That one sentence. I could have hit him. I could have screamed. Instead, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I finally saw the full picture. He wasn't some monster. He was just a mirror, reflecting what my marriage had already become. And she had walked toward that mirror willingly. I turned around and left without another word. As I drove back, I didn't feel closure, or revenge, or even anger. I just felt tired. But that night, when I checked my phone, I saw a message from Kala. One sentence. Did you see him? And I realized she knew. She knew I'd go. I stared at her message for a long time. Did you see him? That one line said more than any apology ever could. She knew I'd follow the trail. She left the breadcrumbs on purpose, his name, the messages, the panic attack, the call to her sister. It wasn't manipulation. It wasn't strategy. It was something else. It was surrender. She was finally giving me control of the story. I didn't respond that night. Instead, I walked to a diner nearby, the kind that smells like burnt coffee and comfort. I sat at a booth by the window and watched strangers pass by. I listened to their laughter, their arguments, their mundane conversations. People living lives that weren't crumbling. The waitress asked if I was waiting for someone. I shook my head and said, no, I'm just starting over. That was the first time those words felt real. I was starting over. Not with revenge. Not with bitterness. But with something else, space. The next morning, I packed what was left at the apartment. Kala wasn't there. She'd left me a handwritten note. Nothing dramatic. Just, whatever you choose next, I'll respect it. I'm sorry. For the first time in months, I believed her. A week later, I moved into a smaller place. Just one bedroom, one window, and a plant I'm determined to keep alive. I started cooking for myself again. Watching those dumb quiz shows we used to mock. Turns out I actually enjoy them. I've stopped checking her social media. Stopped rereading old texts. Stopped wondering if she's still crying into that pillow. Because I'm not angry anymore. I'm free. And here's the twist. Kala and I didn't disappear from each other's lives entirely. Months later, we met for coffee. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people who once shared everything and now share silence a little less painfully. She's in therapy. She's working on herself. And me? I'm not rushing anything. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm breathing at my own pace. Maybe someday we'll find our way back. Or maybe we were only ever meant to teach each other how to let go. Either way, I'm at peace. And that's something I never thought I'd say. Thank you for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced a moment that changed your life forever, good or bad, drop it in the comments below. Let's talk about those turning points in history, both personal and collective, that shape who we are. See you in the next story.